February 11th, 2022. Last week somebody posted about the role of the darkness. Dark stuff within us. There's nothing outside of us dark that we get to worry about. And what I was given was the analogy of a slingshot. And instead of that little leather or material cup that you would put a rock in at the bottom of the slingshot, if you imagine the sun and you're the slingshot. Well, that little holder that you'd put the rock in, if you imagine that as a basket of the shite we accumulate in our lives, if you keep accumulating it, it starts filling up the basket. And pretty soon you don't know how to get rid of it. And people have said for years, that saying, let it go. But they don't tell you how to let it go. And that's been part of the reason I'm doing what I do, is to show people how to let it go. And the analogy of the slingshot, meaning let it go in little chunks at a time. What I was shown the other evening was basically how to let it go. And it can only be let go in one chunk at a time. And the chunk that you're letting go at a time is a feeling. And let it go sounds like a phrase that initiates action. It's not. Letting it go, if you could look at it that way, is not a verb. The verb indicating action is feeling. Feeling it is how we let it go. And when I, because I have to take this, I'm shown stuff in an experience myself and then told to share it with everybody else. When I allow myself to be in space to ask and then be shown something ridiculous and then allow myself to feel it, however intense that feeling is, it doesn't last. And once it's felt, the slingshot takes it and sends it back to the light. It's gone. And then you don't have to look at that particular portion of it ever again. So have a look at your slingshot basket to see how much crap we're hanging on to. I say you, I'm talking about myself. Because if we let our basket get too overloaded with all the negativity that's coming up for release now, or to feel now, it spills over onto everything else. And nobody wants to be around you if you're dripping shit all over the place from your basket, which is over flooded with all the feelings that you've hung on to and been afraid to release or afraid to even look at. If you feel it, I figured that it would be too much to look at. It's not. That's not what the divine plan is about. When you feel it, that allows you to release it. So allow the, 5, 10, 20 seconds of overwhelm, but then it's gone and it's no longer in your basket. So if we had been, if our parents had understood that it's okay to let a child feel pain or negativity, and that's how it's released, but the parents had I would say 99.9% of them didn't have that information, but we've got it now. So once something negative happens and we allow ourselves to feel, it's released and it's no longer dragged around with us, filling up the basket. And then our basket gets light and we're able to see the light, and nothing keeps us from the light anymore. So allow the stuff that's coming up. Allow it. And you'll only be given what you can handle. So if you feel like your basket's way overloaded, you just start with one little thing at a time. Something comes up for you, have a look at it. Allow yourself to process it. Allow yourself to feel it. And the letting go is not something you have to do. It just happens automatically. So the slingshot analogy. Any of you that had a slingshot like I did as a kid? that worked for me because it was something that I was familiar with. And then I saw the basket dripping over black shite and everything else. And yeah, it's not cool. Because everybody else, there's no longer any hiding all that stuff from anybody else. People can always see that. And we're all being given, the gifts are opening up for everybody now, where you don't have to talk to somebody. You know how they're feeling or how they're doing just by looking at them from a distance. Body language and all the other signs, and our senses have opened up expansively. That's very cool. So don't be afraid to feel stuff. Let it go. Allow it to let go. Allow yourself to feel it, and it's gone. Take care. Hey, folks. So I have a story to share with you, and the analogy of the slingshot that I was given a couple of days ago, I scratched some really crude drawings that I want to share as part of this little video. So here's the first one that I was given, and up here we've got the sun, always there, and the slingshot. So this is what I first saw, and like a boiling cauldron, and this is supposed to be a basket, and the elastics coming from the slingshot. So this is some potentially overloading and falling onto everything else. That's a potentiality. But when we start, I'll drop those on the floor. When we come here, we may have something from a previous life, but it's generally a fairly light basket that we're dealing with. Anything that happens, we release it right away because we haven't been told to do anything. So that's why you see the kids at the grocery store, or something happens, you hurt yourself, and then you cry. And the system working perfectly, as soon as some kind of weight happens to us, we feel it and release it. And then as life goes on, we learn to not say what's on our mind, or we learn to hush because that doesn't sound kind. And all of a sudden, instead of releasing stuff right away, things start to build up. And we get to a point where we don't realize anymore that we can get rid of it easily by feeling it. Because most of the people who are our caregivers weren't aware of it. So, what have I got written there? The more pain you hold on to because of fear of feeling it, or what do you do with it, the more of it drops onto the floor and onto everything else. Because remember, everybody else has their own stuff in their own basket as well. And most of us had no idea how to deal with it. So if you think about your basket being full of these little tiny rocks of things that you've carried around with you, you can actually start releasing them back to the light for transmuting. It is possible to do. But in order to do that, you have to feel. And sometimes you wonder how in the name of goodness you're going to even tackle getting stuff out of that basket. What do you do with it? Because at this point, it can have developed holes in your basket, and it's leaking all over the place, making a great big mess. And sometimes you can wake up and find yourself drowning in the basket of stuff. But remember, if you're in the basket and you can't see anything else, you look up. The light is always there waiting for you, and you can swim. You're given the tools. In other words, the analogy is you're given the tools that you need. Or you can have one of your arms break off and, the basket can start going, splashing out and doing all kinds of weird stuff. And as you go through your life, anything that keeps you from feeling, anything that we take on or attach to that keeps us from feeling our pain is hanging onto that basket so that it can't be released back to the light. Whatever it is. It was sugar for me. That was a biggie. But it can be anything. The internet, addiction to whatever. And those addictions are like chains that'll attach onto your basket and hang on to it so that you don't want to release your stuff.
You've no idea that you can even think about it. But those addictions, anything that's going to make you not feel, is a great big weight that's keeping your pain attached to yourself. So what's coming up now, and will be for the next week or so, is anything that needs looking at. So if something comes up for you that's fairly painful, or a weird thought you haven't thought about for a while that's painful, it's an invitation to look at it so that you can get back to the point of not having anything left in your basket. Yeah. Welcome to my messy sewing room. So good luck. Everybody's in the same boat. We're all experiencing stuff right now for release, and take it one small chunk at a time. You can do this. Ask for help. Your team is always waiting to give you support.